ask, who on earth are you?
Jiminy Cricket. And who might you be?
Well, I am Sebastian J. Cricket.
You might have noticed that for some reason, studios decided that 2022 was the year for Pinocchio remakes. Here are all the ways Guillermo Del Toro's remake is nothing like Disney's Pinocchio's. We really need to talk about Gepetto.
Enough!
Number 1. Pinocchio doesn't look anything like his old, Disney-fied self in Del Toro's remake. Not much of Del Toro's take looks like the Disney version, but we'll get to that soon.
Okay, Lappy.
Let's get back to Pinocchio. Because Del Toro's take on the movie is more realistic overall, so is Pinocchio's design. This version stays away from the embellished, round and colorful styles of live-action and original Disney films.
Makes a big difference.
We can see that Del Toro's doesn't even wear clothes and is much closer to real wood patterns and imperfections. Number 2. We can't compare these versions without talking about Pinocchio's famous feature, his nose.
Big green eye.
As we all know, in the Disney versions, the blue fairy casts a spell on Pinocchio that each time he lies, his nose grows, and eventually the fairy turns his nose back to normal.
Gee, look, Jiminy, my nose!
In Del Toro's version, his nose still grows when he lies, but it grows into a big tree branch with pine needles and pine cones.
I'm a real boy!
Not only that, but his nose can only be fixed when Gepetto grinds it down himself. This technique seems a little harsh compared to some innocent fairy magic. Number 3. Speaking of fairy magic, where's the blue fairy? Instead of the sweet and motherly blue fairy character from both Disney versions we know and love, we get two sister spirits called the Wood Sprite and Death. You heard us right. One of the spirits is Death. The Wood Sprite still acts as a guardian, and she's still blue, but the eyes blinking at us on the giant feather wings, that's new. We'll get to the role that the Death Spirit plays a little later.
See you next time.
Number 4. Remember the talking fox that tricks Pinocchio into joining the circus?
I sure do!
Well then?
In Disney's remake, Honest John takes on an updated look from the old conniving charmer. But in Del Toro's version, he's replaced by Count Volpe. This time, he's not a fox at all. He's human. But don't worry, he's just as melodramatic.
Can you not see how desperate the situation is?
He obviously pays tribute to a fox with his long pointy nose, fur coat, and red hair that divide into 2 points like fox ears. Not to mention his name, Volpe, means fox in Italian. We see what you did there, Del Toro. Number 5. Get out the tissues, because we weren't ready for this one. In both new versions, the films seem to hint at a new backstory that Gepetto fans didn't get in the 1940s original. In the Disney version, there's a picture of Gepetto's workshop of a young boy who looks just like Pinocchio.
How I felt when he was here with me.
Could this be a son Gepetto lost? There's no doubting this theory in Del Toro's movie. We get a whole backstory revealing that Gepetto's son died in a tragic accident. This certainly explains the themes of grief in the remake and Gepetto's drunken choice to remake his lost son in some way. Number 6. Every main character needs their trusty sidekick.
Would you like to be Pinocchio's conscience?
Well,
In this case, he was Pinocchio's conscience. The Disney remake stays true to the original by making Jiminy Cricket the narrator and trusted guide for Pinocchio on his journey to learning right from wrong. He's all dressed up and seems to have all the answers when it comes to morals. In the Del Toro remake, Jiminy Cricket is not Jiminy at all. He's Sebastian J. Cricket. Maybe the J stands for Jiminy? Who knows? He's not sporting a fancy getup, and he's a little more bug-like. He's not above making his own mistakes, and he learns from Pinocchio just as much as the boy learns from him. Number 7. It's not surprising that Disney stayed true to Disney for this remake when it comes to the storyline. Everything from Gepetto creating a boy out of wood who runs away and gets into all sorts of trouble holds up in this version. But Del Toro took a completely different turn. His story rejects a lot of the original 1940 movie's ideas that idealize obedience and that Pinocchio has to change to be loved.
He's made of wood too. Why do they like him and not me?
The movie centers heavily on grief and death, a topic much too mature for the original to attempt. This is where the Death Sister spirit comes in too. She helps Pinocchio come to terms with the fact that he might never die.
Nor will you ever be a real boy.
But the people around him will. It makes this Pinocchio appreciate life in a much deeper way. Number 8. Yet another huge change here. Disney's remake remains in the same fictional place in Italy with no specific era in mind. Del Toro's version is pretty intentional with its setting. Here, it's Italy in the 1930s. We're not history buffs, but we can tell you that Italy was ruled by a fascist dictator at that time. It's why we see a darker and more serious environment to Pinocchio's experiences here. It actually reflects real, darker times. Number 9. If you've ever been to Disney World, you've definitely heard this iconic song. The award-winning song from the original movie, When You Wish Upon a Star, was a huge hit that later became Disney's signature song. Jiminy Cricket actually sings it over the opening credits and the last scene of the original.
Thank you, milady.
In the Disney remake, we see the Blue Fairy sing a slightly different version in Gepetto's workshop, and it's just as magical. But the song that fans love so much did not make Del Toro's version. We still get a few musical numbers, like the song Ciao Papa, sung by Pinocchio himself, that's just as touching.
And tell him I love him, and I won't be a burden anymore.
Number 10. Finally, we're getting to the creepy part we all remember from the original. When Pinocchio runs away, he ends up on Pleasure Island, a cursed place that turns misbehaving boys into donkeys.
Help! Help! Somebody help!
It's what nightmares are made of. Del Toro again takes things to a much more realistic level in his version. Given the setting of 1930s Italy, he decides to have naughty boys, including Pinocchio, sent to a war camp. The filmmaker explained that because Pinocchio is made of wood and cannot die, the camp leaders believed him to be the perfect soldier. It sure is a major twist on some creepy fairgrounds. Number 11. If you haven't been able to tell by now, these remakes have completely different animation styles. Disney opted for a live-action remake mixed with CGI, like they've done time and time again with Lion King, The Jungle Book, and Beauty and the Beast. Del Toro went the route of stop-motion animation, used in movies like Coraline and Nightmare Before Christmas. Each frame is shot with cameras, and every detail is molded with clay or puppet. It's a totally different style that brings different levels of detail and creepiness, frankly. Number 12. One thing both versions have in common is their impressive cast lineup. The Disney remake includes Tom Hanks as Gepetto, a casting choice made in heaven. It also includes Luke Evans as the coachman and Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket. Del Toro's includes a lot of stars too. Ewan McGregor is the voice of Sebastian J. Cricket. David Bradley from Game of Thrones and the Harry Potter movies voices Gepetto. And Stranger Things star Finn Wolfhard even voices Candlewick. So whether you're watching the Disney remake or Del Toro's, you're bound to hear some familiar voices. Our nose would grow if we said we didn't enjoy pointing out these mind-blowing differences between these remakes. Which difference did you find most surprising? Let us know in the comments below. If you're looking for more content like this on all the best animated TV and movies, don't forget to subscribe to The Things Animated.